Hello, today we are on day 3 of our plant cells book. In our bookworms, that would be week 8, day 5. We are going to be reading pages 14 through 21. We're going to be learning mostly about how plants use water and how they make food. There's 2 text structures that the author has chosen. The first one that we'll see is a cause and effect structure. So we're going to look for that structure to help us understand what happens when plants get too much water, too little water, when they live in the sea, or when they don't get enough sunlight. And then there's also a sequence of events for how plants make food, and we're going to be using that sequence of events in our bookworms today. So remember, for that structure, you're going to look for number words, or you're going to be looking for time words. And so it does look like a little bit longer reading today since it's 14 through 21, but if you were to look at the work, we only have one vocab word today, and then we just have this written response where it's asking us to rewrite the diagram on page 19. So we can see the sequence. So really it's just going to be a numbered list of events for photosynthesis. So let's get started. And as we go through here, I'm going to have some questions for you. So pay attention so you'll be ready to answer those. So let's start here where it says, how do plant cells use water? Plants need water, but what kind of water and how much? Plants contain much more water than animals. Fruits and vegetables are made up of 75% to 96% water, while humans are made up of about 60% water on average throughout a lifetime. So plants need more water than what animals do. Water has several functions in plant cells. Water carries nutrients to the cells. Chloroplast in leaves and stems use hydrogen from water to make food. Water fills the central vacuole, which helps support a plant's trunk or stem. Without water, plants wilt. Plants get water through their roots. Too little water, such as during a drought, causes plant cells to shrivel up and die. Thirsty plants do not produce fruit or seeds. Too much water is as bad as too little water. Roots rot in the soil and young leaves turn brown. Overwatered plants do not produce new growth. Plant cells need to breathe. They take in carbon dioxide during the day and oxygen at night. When there is too much water, the cells cannot take in needed gases and plants suffocate. Okay, here's your first question. What happens when plants do not get enough water? Go ahead and answer that now. Okay, my other question is, what happens when plants get too much water? Go ahead and answer that now. Good job. Let's continue reading. Plants in desert environments. Plants use water in different ways depending on their environment. For example, hundreds of different cacti means more than one cactus, thrive in hot, dry deserts. In the desert, a cactus makes do with very little water. When it does rain, cacti cells soak up and store as much water as possible. The roots get water from the soil. The cactus's skin stretches to hold the extra water. Dermal cells on a cactus form a thick, waxy layer. They prevent water from escaping, so the cactus loses very little water through its outer surface. The cactus slowly uses the water, shrinking in size until the next big rain. And then over here it says these trees could not survive in so much water, and so it's got all of this kind of water covering up the bottom of it. So I have enough information that I could probably make an inference here. The text says that the trees cannot survive, and then the picture shows dead trees in a lake. But the trees are really big, so I'm thinking that the plants used to be dry, and the trees were healthy at one time. Then it flooded for some reason, and the trees died, because otherwise how would they have gotten so big to begin with? All right. So going back up to this paragraph, though, I do have one more question for you. So what do plants in very dry climates do for water? Try to describe that. Here, our next section talks about plants in ocean environments. Giant kelp, a type of seaweed, sway in ocean currents. Kelp, like other seaweeds, live in saltwater seas. Kelp cells do not form tissues to carry water, as a tree does. They are surrounded by and take in water directly as it is needed. They have adapted to life in salt water, which would kill most land plants. They use the minerals in salt water to survive. So kelp is very different from our ordinary plant, isn't it? It's taking in water a little bit differently, and it's using salt water that most plants wouldn't like. So it says giant kelp cells use the minerals and salts in salt water to help them survive. Let's learn a little bit about rainforest. So plants in rainforest environments. Deep in the rainforest, hundreds of varieties of fig plants spread their broad leaves toward the patchy sunlight that sifts through the canopy overhead. Figs and other rainforest plants get rained on almost daily. Rainforest plants adapt to getting so much water. It is important to look at the entire rainforest ecosystem, the organisms and their environment, to see how the plants deal with such heavy rainfall. In rainforests, rates of evaporation, or loss of water as a gas, are high, and water vapor makes the air sticky with humidity. Some plants get all the water they need from the water vapor in the air. Rainforests have dense plant life, which allows many plants to share the available water. Plants that take in water through their roots quickly move that water through their systems. They get rid of water through transpiration. Transpiration is the process that allows plants to release water vapor through small pores in their leaves. Many plants have broad leaves, which allow for high rates of transpiration. That reminds me of something that humans do. As these examples show, plant cells in different environments take in, use, and get rid of excess water differently. So I was saying transpiration, sorry, I keep saying that wrong. Transpiration reminds me of something that humans do when they get too hot and they need to get rid of water. So my question for you is actually two questions. What does transpiration mean? And then how is that related to perspiration? Hopefully you've heard of that word before. Let's look at the caption up here. Rainforests support a great deal of plant and animal life. Okay, now we're into that next section where we were looking for a sequence. So it says, how do plant cells make food? Plants absorb nutrients through their roots. The nutrients are dissolved in water and sucked up through a complex root system. Nutrient-rich water travels from cell to cell through the stem to leaves, flowers, and fruit. Just as with humans, the better the nutrition they receive, the faster and stronger plants grow. So, if we were to sum this up, what is it that plants need in order to make food? How would you answer that question? And this illustration shows the nutrients. Those are like what they have written here on the purple lines. The nutrients a plant absorbs through its roots. Photosynthesis. Green plants make their own food through a process called photosynthesis. Photosynthesis takes place in the leaves of green plants. The process combines three activities. First, the plant breathes in carbon dioxide from the air. At the same time, chlorophyll in the chloroplast collects sunlight. Water is also sucked up through the roots. Once the main ingredients are present, the chemical process begins. Photosynthesis is chemistry in action. When the sun shines, plants remove hydrogen atoms, the smallest unit, from water, H2O, molecules, which are atoms bonded together. They also remove carbon atoms from carbon dioxide molecules. 6 water molecules combine with 6 carbon dioxide molecules to make glucose. That leaves 6 molecules of oxygen as waste product. And so this diagram right here is what we're going to be using in our bookworms today. It says photosynthesis turns sunlight, water, and carbon dioxide into sugars and starches. We can see that going through right here. So we have first the chloroplasts trap the light energy, and then the water enters the leaf. And so we have sunlight is what's giving us that energy. Water comes in, and carbon dioxide enters the leaf through the stomata. So the stomata, those small pores on the surface of the leaf. And sugar is produced in the cells because you have the 3 things needed to produce that sugar. And then once that's produced, that extra oxygen that's created leaves the leaf. So here's our reaction here. Light energy plus water plus carbon dioxide is going to give us an output of sugar and oxygen. We know that the sugar is going to be used where the oxygen is going to be let out as waste. So producing seeds. Glucose provides plants with the energy they need to grow. In the beginning, plant energy is used to produce longer, stronger stems and more leaves. As plants mature, they use energy to produce fruit, seeds, and nuts. In nature, most plants produce seeds. The number of seeds a plant makes is determined by the plant's DNA. Plant cells know to produce a few seeds, for example, coconuts, hundreds of seeds, for example, cucumbers, or thousands of seeds, for example, saguaro cacti. The number of seeds depends on how difficult it is to make new plants. For example, the odds that coconuts will produce new palm trees are fairly high, but the odds that a saguaro cactus will grow from seed to adulthood are very small. So let's see if you caught that in here. Why do plants make glucose? Okay, let's continue on. Kind of interesting picture here. This is a Venus flytrap, and it's producing enzymes to digest its tasty insects. So it's kind of weird sometimes to think about plants that eat animals, but it does happen. Poor growing conditions. What happens when there is not enough water or sunlight for photosynthesis to occur? Plants are sensitive to the conditions surrounding them. If there is no sunlight or there are too few nutrients for good health, plants do not produce fruits, vegetables, seeds, or nuts. Do all plants get food through photosynthesis? Not all plants live by absorbing nutrients or making their own food. Some plants eat meat. Carnivorous, meat-eating plants include sundews, pitcher plants, and Venus flytraps. So that's what we were seeing up here was the Venus flytrap. These plants evolved or developed over time to eat meat because they grew in poor, sandy soil. The plants needed added nutrients in their diets, and they got these nutrients by eating insects. Meat-eating plants have cells that produce chemical substances called enzymes that help plants get useful nutrients from insects. Meat-eating plants use different methods to trap their prey. Venus flytraps have hairy leaves. When an insect brushes the hairs, cells in the plant react. The plant closes its leaves and digests its dinner. Sundew cells set a trap with shiny glue. Insects step in the glue and the plant has caught a meal. And then our last page here talks about a volcanic disaster and how that had an impact on the plants that were in the area. So a volcanic disaster. When the Mount Tambora volcano in the Dutch East Indies, now part of Indonesia, erupted in 1815, it began a cycle of some of the worst destruction the world has seen. Ash, dust, and gas from the eruption filled the sky. The climate changed in 1816, became a year without summer. With reduced sunlight, Earth did not warm as much. In some places, plants did not undergo photosynthesis and produce fruit, vegetables, grains, and seeds. Crops failed, and hundreds of thousands of people and millions of animals died of hunger. The caption here says the Mount Tambora volcano prevented sunlight from reaching plants. Their cells did not undergo photosynthesis, and the plants starved to death. So then there's my last question. Why were plants affected by the volcanic eruption in 1815? Why were they affected? Okay, now that you've answered all of my questions, it is time to get into our bookworms. Our first thing is photosynthesis. So we have this vocabulary word. Photosynthesis means the process of plants making food. The prefix photo means light. The base word synthesis means to make. Plants need light to make food. So you're going to put photosynthesis in the middle here, and then a who, what, where, when, why, how. You just need at least 3 of those to go along with your vocab word. Then as you look down here, rewrite the diagram on page 19 so you can clearly see the sequence of events in photosynthesis. Really, this is just going to be a numbered list, and you can see that list in our book up here. So you're going to write number 1, chloroplasts trap light energy. Number 2, water enters the leaf. Number 3, write this down. Number 4, number 5. So you should have 5 steps on here when you're finished, and then when you're done with that, you can go ahead and turn that in.